Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you guys can see, I am not in my normal reading studio. Today I'm actually filming in my parents' house in DC in front of my stepdad's horror DVD collection. He's a huge horror fiend, as am I, and these are just some of his beloved props and favorite horror films behind me. So I thought this would be a really cool background to film in front of as I'm filming in DC for this little trip that I'm on. But today I'm going to be doing my review of Stephen King's latest novel, Later. If you guys watched my Nightworms March 2021 unboxing, you will know that this is where I got this book. This book was released, I believe, March 2nd of 2021, and I read it in a 24-hour period. Had it not been for the thing called sleep, I think I would have finished the entire thing in one sitting. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of a glimpse into what my opinions were on this novel. I really enjoyed this novel. This was a 4-star read for me. I really didn't want to put it down. It definitely fits in his like new realm of Stephen King, where he's kind of gone beyond writing horror and is pretty much writing crime thrillers with like supernatural elements kind of thrown in, very similar to like The Outsider. I know that he's been doing all of those detective stories with Mr. Mercedes and that whole realm, so very similar to those kind of stories and a lot less horror. I will say, which I thought was interesting, was on the very first page of the book, he ends the little intro with the sentences, "I think this is a horror story, check it out." So in Stephen King's mind, there's a huge chance that yes, this could be horror, but I don't necessarily think I would classify it as horror. This is definitely a crime thriller drama. But it's a very, very good one. So this was published by Hard Case Crime. This is the third book Stephen King has done with Hard Case Crime as his publisher, and all three of them, I believe, have been the same kind of realm of supernatural crime thriller. I haven't read Joyland or The Colorado Kid, but those are the other two novels that he wrote for this publisher. So I'll just quickly read the back of the book. The son of a struggling single mother, Jamie Conklin just wants an ordinary childhood. But Jamie is no ordinary child. Born with an unnatural ability his mom urges him to keep secret, Jamie can see what no one else can see and learn what no one else can learn. But the cost of using this ability is higher than Jamie can imagine, as he discovers when an NYPD detective draws him into the pursuit of a killer who has threatened to strike from beyond the grave. Later is Stephen King at his finest, a terrifying and touching story of innocence lost and the trials that test our sense of right and wrong. With echoes of King's classic novel It, Later is a powerful, haunting, unforgettable exploration of what it takes to stand up to evil in all the faces it wears. So the premise of the story is there is a kid named Jamie who I believe we meet at age 6, and we follow him up through, I guess, around age 22, because he's telling the story, and just his experiences with this power that he has, which is very similar to Haley Joel Osment's role in The Sixth Sense. He can see dead people. The caveat to that, though, is he can only speak to dead people for about a week before they kind of go on. And so he basically gets almost roped into like solving crimes. I don't really want to say that because that's not necessarily what the story is. But it's just the people around him who, and himself, of course, who use his ability to certain advantages and his whole experience with that. So in classic King fashion, this book is filled with a lot of like twists and turns. It does have a couple of red herrings as to what's going on, but the primary focus is through the eyes of Jamie and how his life is affected by his interactions with the ghosts around him that he sees and how he interprets them. It is definitely not a ripoff of The Sixth Sense, though if you like The Sixth Sense, I think you'll really like this novel. While it's definitely things that I've seen before, there are a lot of elements in it that King brings to this type of story that are definitely new and fresh. He does heavily reference some things from It, which is as you can see, my favorite King novel of all time, so I was stoked on that. And he's got a lot of little Easter eggs that pertain back to his other stories, which I think is really cool. And I really like that this whole story was set in New York. So it's primarily taking place in Manhattan, goes up a little bit into the Hudson Valley. But these are all places that, because I live in New York, I'm very, very familiar with. And I wonder if this is how people who like are from Maine or Colorado feel when they read Stephen King. But this was amazing to see like my home mapped out in this kind of story. And it was very believable, very descriptive. I could really just see myself in those places. And overall it was really fun. What I really liked about this is I love how Stephen King writes kid characters. I think he's always done a really good job with that. There's definitely a couple phrases he uses that are definitely a little too dated to be used by some of his characters in this book, but it's forgivable. It's hard to figure out what kids in like 2013 talk like, but that's fine. But I did really enjoy how he wrote our main character. He felt like a very believable kid, a very intelligent kid who was in a really interesting home situation. He is raised by a single mom who works for a publishing company, and she actually gave a really good insight to what the publishing side of writing is like. I feel like when you read Stephen King, you really get a lot of introspective on what it's like to be a writer, so it was really cool to actually see the other side of like the publishing aspect coming through, which is something I don't think I've ever actually seen him do before, so I really enjoyed that. Sorry if you can hear my mom's dog barking, she's like going crazy up there. But I will say that the ending of this novel was definitely very gut-wrenching, but it was really disturbing. Like the most horrifying part of this novel was the very, very end. I didn't see it coming. I'm not 100% sure why it was included. I will say it's not something that came out of nowhere, because it was something that was definitely alluded to throughout the book, but like I didn't really pick up on because I didn't think that it was a major plot point. But it is very disturbing, very unnerving, and I think that's where the kind of horror aspect comes in, beyond the fact that our main character does see ghosts. So I think that was definitely the most jarring part of the book for me. Stephen King endings, as many people know, can kind of go either way when you're reading them. This ending I'm not dissatisfied with. It was fine, but it did come out of left field, and I was very like, whoa. But I didn't feel cheated by the ending. I didn't feel like it was rushed. I felt like the ending was very well fleshed out. But I will say that one of my biggest complaints with this book is that it was short, which is weird, right? Usually you get Stephen King and it's like, oh my god, like his short stories turn into novellas, and his novels are like door stoppers of over 1,000 pages. But this one was really brief. It was like 260 some pages, really quick and easy to read. But I would have loved if it was just a little bit longer. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, like this book could have been 300 pages longer and I still would have been invested in it, because I really liked our main character, Jamie. I really loved his mom, Tia. And then I thought the antagonists were brilliant. And I don't want to like spoil who the antagonists are, because I do highly recommend that people read this, but I really liked how King made antagonists, how there were different layers of antagonists. And I like how various antagonists and different characters would come in at different points in the plot and have different purposes to serve before coming back and having other purposes to serve in kind of a unique way. This isn't necessarily the most linear story I've ever read. It's not like this is the plot and it goes forward from there. It's kind of a little choppy of like these are different stages and different events and how they kind of all converge to connect to one final act, which I thought was really interesting. This is something that I think Stephen Graham Jones tried to do in The Only Good Indians that didn't necessarily work in that book for me, but I thought the way that it was done in this book was really, really brilliant. I really liked it. Again, it was told through little snapshots of what's his name, Jamie Conklin, of Jamie Conklin's life, and very similar also to the style that Stephen King used in The Dead Zone. If you've read The Dead Zone, very similar storytelling motifs from The Dead Zone and later, though I will say I preferred it in later. So as far as new Stephen King goes, I've actually been quite a fan of new Stephen King. I kind of consider new Stephen King, I guess, like the 2000s onwards. A lot of the books I've read I've really enjoyed. Again, The Outsider, The Institute, which I read last year, which I thought was fabulous. Revival, we all know my thoughts on a revival, but whatever. But yeah, I do actually tend to like newer Stephen King stories. I know a lot of people don't. I will say that I wish they were more horror influenced. I would say Revival is probably the only newer Stephen King book that I've read recently that's been very like horror. I haven't read Dr. Sleep yet. That's on my to-read list, so I think that one's gonna be very, like, not so much crime drama and very scary, so I'm excited to read that this year. But yeah, so definitely not a horror story, definitely a great crime drama, definitely an interesting take on the kid who sees ghosts. And I'm really excited for Stephen King's other upcoming book. I believe it's called Billy Summers, something like that. Just because I think this was a very, like, nice, neat, wrapped up story. You know, it reminded me a lot of 1922, if you guys have read that. I actually like when Stephen King writes through first person, or almost like a letter, like looking back. So I got a lot of 1922 themes from this as well, which is definitely a style I think I like. And I think there's something nice about Stephen King's shorter works, because I think he has the ending fleshed out when he writes the books. So you do tend to get stronger endings from Stephen King in his shorter books versus some of the longer ones where the endings are just like The Stand, Pet Sematary, where it kind of, and I know people love Pet Sematary, but I've always felt like his longer books always kind of come to this like really like high climax, and then all of a sudden it's over. You're like, wait, what? The Stand especially is a really good example of that. But his shorter books never seem to do that. So really, really thrilled with this. Highly recommend it. Again, 4 out of 5 stars. Stephen King did not disappoint. If you're questioning reading this, don't question it. Just pick it up. It's fun. Again, not horror, nothing crazy groundbreaking, but it is really, really, really good. All right, so that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday. Might throw in a couple extra videos in soon. I'm not 100% sure, but I've got a lot of stuff that I'm planning for you guys right now. So we'll see what goes on with that. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, again, hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what other books I should be reading or that you guys would like to see reviewed. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all later. Mwah.